Heather, when it is currently the 27th of March 2015, a Friday out here in Japan, making this update right around 6 p.m. Japan Standard Time, 5 p.m. Philippine Standard Time. We are continuing to watch our tropical depression, not quite named yet when I am making this update, but I am sure some of you may be watching it after it has already been named. Tropical depression, soon to be called Maysak. And let's take a look at the forecast with this storm system. But first, actually, let's talk about where it is right now, because this is one of the things I do want to key in on. There is still a lot of time to watch this storm. I know we've actually been saying that for several days now. Take a look at where it is, way towards the southeast of Guam, over Micronesia. This is still thousands of kilometers away from the Philippines. So before anybody starts to jump on this potentially impacting the Philippines, do keep in mind that if it did, it would not be until probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week. So still 7 days away. Not to say don't ignore it at this time, but we're still watching this over the next, well, several days. Now, if you're in Guam, Saipan, and definitely over towards Yap and Palau, some of these islands out here, this is something to really keep an eye on. So let's take a look at this. Right now, actually, you take a look at satellite imagery, it is continuing to organize much better than what we were seeing earlier this week when it was just an area of disorganized convection. Well, at least at this time, the low-level circulation, you can even see it here in the visible imagery, it was displaced from most of the convection. It is now moving under all of this convection. That is going to allow more intensification, more fuel for this to work with. Plus, it's sitting over some relatively warm sea surface temperatures. We're talking about 30 to 33 degrees Celsius out here, and it is relatively far south, out of the grasp of vertical wind shear. Now, when you get this far south, we're kind of lacking Coriolis, but it is drifting farther towards the north. That is allowing some more rotation. But the key thing is it has to stay south of 10 degrees north, because if it goes north at this time of year in late March, early April, we're talking about some interaction with the jet stream and tropical systems. They're not really keen about that. So here's your latest forecast from the Japan Meteorological Agency. They only go out 24 hours when we're talking about a tropical depression. They do expect this to become a tropical storm on Saturday, though. That's the key reason why I'm showing this graphic here to you. This is from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, the U.S. military, not the official agency out here in the Western Pacific per the RSMC, but for those of you in Guam and also over towards Micronesia, they mirror the track from the U.S. military, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Main reason is because it's an American agency, and these are, well, American territories out here. So as one reason why we're kind of showing this track here, because if you are located on any of these islands, this is the official track there for you. Right now, though, they do have this at winds about 46, gusting up to 65 kilometers per hour. But the key thing, and this is what everybody is kind of screaming about here, is that, let's take a look at the 5-day forecast. 185. Gusting to 232 kilometers per hour. By the way, on the side of your screen, I know it's written there, Super Typhoon. If you go to the Tropical Information Center on the webpage, you can see the same tool and use it. That is per the Japan Meteorological Agency's definition of a super typhoon. I always want to keep that in mind, because each agency actually has a slightly different definition. It's actually quite interesting. So what we're going to be seeing is this approaching, if we base something on the Saffir-Simpson scale, according to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, approaching a Category 3 hurricane, a major hurricane if it was in the Atlantic. If that made landfall on any of these islands, it definitely could cause some damage. And this is why we're going to be really watching this very closely over the coming days. And if you are right now in Guam, I do think Guam is probably going to miss out on this. It's going to move just towards the south. But in the Philippines, you want to start to make the preparations now out here, because even if it doesn't make a landfall in the Philippines, I still think it wouldn't hurt. You'd be ready well ahead of time. So while out here in Guam, what you're likely going to be seeing as we go ahead over the next 24 to 48 hours is basically partly cloudy skies. You may be thinking, well, where's this tropical system? It still is well to the east even of you. But by Sunday night into Monday, the winds are already picking up, by the way. We still have the northeast monsoon continuing to move through. And I do think the winds will definitely continue to kick up as we look ahead, just mainly because of the interaction between our low pressure area and a high pressure area off towards north. But it's really by Monday when we're going to start to see the rain kick in and even the winds start to build up. So let's take a look at the Meteor Earth app here and kind of tell you what exactly is going to be going on. And if we look ahead, So we have our storm system just down here towards the southeast. Now this is on Friday over the Marshall Islands. You can see Guam pointed out here on the map just here towards the left. Now as it does continue to track towards the east, though, it's going to interact with that high off towards north. And that is going to increase the gradient-induced wind. So yes, it will be breezy, but I don't think it's going to be a direct interaction because this is still going to pass well down here towards the south. Even some passing showers. But as far as this storm compared to Bobby, which impacted those of you out here just 2 weeks ago, I think it's going to be a little bit less intense. Might still have some school closures. So if you are looking forward to that, if you are in school out here across parts of Guam, you might get it. But right now, I don't think it's going to be as intense as Bobby. And that'll be some good news. You'll miss out on the damage from this storm system. Now, the big thing, though, is that as it does continue to move by, any mariners out here, any people on vacation, you may want to stay away from the coastal areas, especially along the eastern seaboard. So let's take a look at the extended range. I know that's what everybody really wants to know about, right? Well, with the ECMWF model, our Meteor app here, it does keep it a little bit farther down here towards the south. But this is the key thing I want you to keep in mind. This is going to stay out of the grasp of that jet stream. Remember, I was just mentioning that here, and that's basically off here towards the north. You have a subtropical ridge rate in this area and our storm down towards the south. That keeps it out of the vertical wind shear. But the subtropical ridge, that's something I really want to point out because this area of high pressure is keeping our storm system on that westerly track. So let's look ahead. Actually, let's scroll back here. This is by Wednesday and Thursday. If this high does give way a little bit farther towards the east, that would allow this to kind of rotate around and move farther towards the north. Models are split on this, and that's something to keep in mind, really. Let's go back here and take a look at some of the numerical outputs. As I mentioned, they're split on this being impacted by that passing trough or staying towards the south and not really. Look at the nav gem. That kind of just grabs this and shoves it off there towards the north. The CMC as well. Both of these models not really that great at tropical forecasting, though. The ones that are, and they're not picking up on that passing trough, is our ECMWF. That's the one I was just showing you here. And the GFS actually pulls this storm system somewhere into northeastern Luzon. The big thing, though, as you can see here, is that we do have a lot of disparity within the model as well still. And I think you really want to get all this ensembles kind of much closer together before we really start trying to put a pinpoint down. But right now, this is still a lot of long range. But I think just given these two outputs right here, if I was in the Philippines, I'm in Tokyo right now, by the way. If I was in the Philippines, I would be at least keeping a very close eye on this. And if I lived right near the immediate coastline, I definitely would start making those early preparations. Make sure you got a little supplies ready. Make sure you check. Might be a good time to know if there's going to be an evacuation center nearby. I wouldn't say start heading out and packing at this point, but just have those supplies ready. And it doesn't hurt anyways. I mean, you live in the tropics in the Western Pacific, and having supplies ready any time of the year is probably a pretty smart idea. I think anybody can tell you that. So this is the extended range forecast we basically put out here. Like I said, there's just that big disparity there in the long range. And then we can even actually go ahead, and I'll just show you really quick what some of the numerical guidances are showing, not just the ensembles, but just the overall output. This is from the GFS, as I was indicating. And we do have our storm system kind of just lingering off the east coast of Luzon before coming on shore as a strong tropical storm to weak typhoon. Main reason is we have some vertical wind shear that kind of interacts with it. And then we compare this up with the nav gem. As I mentioned just a second ago, it kind of pulls it way off there towards the north. And that is why, if we go back to this, I have one end of the little extended cone of air flowing off here towards the north, and this one keeping basically on a due west direction. But of course, you just want to continue to track with your official agencies. This is just kind of my thoughts with this one. All right, guys, I just yammered on for a good 10 minutes there. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please post them down there in the comment box below. I always appreciate your feedback. And yeah, definitely this is one storm system. I think at this point here on Friday, we really want to watch this very closely over the next week. It is going to be a big story, I do think. If anything, if the good news would be if it doesn't develop into a major typhoon and stays out to sea. I still think it's going to be a big story as far as its intensity this early in the season, but let's hope it does stay out to sea. I really don't want another storm system to hit the Philippines here, but it is something that we really want to watch and just be ready for if need be. Stay safe out there.